We turn to a crackdown on 95 social media accounts from a foreign network that has been spreading falsehoods about the country. Now, under its foreign interference laws, the Home Affairs Ministry has ordered 5 social media platforms to block the accounts from being accessible to the country's residents. The ministry says the network's coordinated action and history of using Singapore to push its agenda could harm social cohesion. Of the 95 accounts, 92 accounts across Facebook, X, Instagram, YouTube and TikTok made over 120 posts from mid-April to May this year. With falsehoods on Singapore's leadership transition, MHA says the coordinated manner in which the posts were published showed signs of deliberate planning. The false narratives included claims that Singapore was under the control of a foreign actor. MHA has directly linked the 92 accounts to a network founded by convicted Chinese fraudster Guo Wengui and his affiliated right-wing organizations. Guo is known to be a vocal critic of the Chinese government and is living in exile in the US. The last 3 accounts belong to a Singapore chapter of Guo's entity. MHA says there is no evidence the accounts are operated by Singaporeans. It urges residents to be discerning when consuming and sharing information online. Some social media platforms have started reviewing and blocking the 95 social media accounts from end users in Singapore. TikTok has complied with Singapore's directive by restricting the account for end users. The platform says authenticity remains the foundation of its community and continuous efforts are made to detect and disrupt covert influence operations. YouTube says it will review MHA's request and remove content in keeping with local laws. It says it has clear policies for removal requests from governments across the world. When deemed appropriate, they will restrict or remove content after a thorough review. Just who is Guo Wengui, the mastermind of a vast network that launches hostile information campaigns across social media? Well, he's also known as Miles Guo. The Shandong native is a businessman, a convicted fraudster, and an outspoken political activist against the Chinese government. Guo had close ties with Steve Bannon, who once served as a White House chief strategist during the tenure of former U.S. President Donald Trump. The pair started the right-wing group New Federal State of China and the Himalaya Supervisory Organization. According to a BBC report, Guo fled China for the US in 2014 after Beijing started looking into his dubious business dealings. In January 2017, he began recording videos and granting interviews that were critical of the Chinese Communist Party. He claimed to be a whistleblower against the Chinese government. In March 2023, Guo was arrested and detained by U.S. authorities for fraud. He was accused of stealing hundreds of millions of dollars from his online followers. He was convicted on 16th of July 2024 after a 7-week trial on 9 of 12 charges. His sentencing is set for 19th of November, and he could face decades in prison. According to global social media analytics firm Graphica, the exiled Chinese businessman is at the center of a vast online network known for spreading falsehoods. The firm conducted a study on the self-proclaimed whistleblowing movement in 2021, and they found the network has been promoting harassment campaigns, which have been linked to multiple violent incidents. Sabrina Ng finds out more.
This man, also known as Miles Guo, is at the center of the so-called Guo Media Network. He led a roster of content creators, publishing platforms and various brands, all working under the guise of a global social-political movement. Their videos are usually well-produced, using a mix of animation, video footage and translated subtitles. Its content focuses on being anti-Chinese Communist Party, spreading falsehoods on health, and waging harassment campaigns against its perceived enemies. The accounts appear to be run by real people, whose sole objective is to amplify Guo's narrative in a coordinated manner. Active supporters of Guo have been referring to themselves as ants since around 2018. They received instruction on the latest operation in a series of publicly accessible servers. Guo has openly promised political asylum in the United States to individuals who lend help to his causes or otherwise work on his behalf. In several videos, he had told viewers that those with foreign citizenship could expect an easier and more favorable treatment on their visas if they donated to his foundation. Graphica has identified over 30 corporate entities and 35 media and local action groups that are part of his network. What you're seeing is a simplified view of just some key entities involved, notably Himalaya Singapore, the local chapter of Himalaya Supervisory Organization, an entity founded by Guo. It was responsible for 3 social media accounts, which have been ordered for removal in Singapore. Evidence of coordination between the accounts has also been uncovered. Posts will be published across a variety of platforms on the same day. It appears that the aim is to spread anti-CCP narratives among the global Chinese diaspora.
Now, for more on the story, I'm now joined by Benjamin Ang, head of the Center of Excellence for National Security and Digital Impact Research at the S. Rajaratnam School of International Studies. Benjamin, welcome to the studio. So we were talking earlier and you said this campaign is bad for social cohesion. This is bad for business. What is the extent of the risks involved behind a misinformation campaign of such scale, of such nature?
Well, Shahida, if you see the number of accounts that are being coordinated and you see that they've got a track record of being used before for misinformation, especially relating to politics, and you think of how we could actually drive a wedge in Singapore society, in our multiracial and multicultural society, then you can see there's a lot of risk to Singapore if they were ever activated on a big scale to actually spread misinformation that could disrupt us.
I want to also talk about the significance of the timing of this crackdown. Do you see it as a preemptive strike against, ahead of an impending general election in the country?
That's a great question, and many people have thought about this. But if I think about it, the events happened in April and May, and probably the investigations must have taken a couple of months, and also the clearances and approvals to actually make an order like this, especially since it's the first time FICA is being used this way. So I wouldn't try and read too much into the timing of it.
Okay. What about the message, though? What do you think is the message that you think the government is sending with this crackdown?
I hope the message that the government is sending is that foreign entities, whether they are businesses or individuals or countries, are not welcome to use these kind of coordinated tactics to spread misinformation and disinformation that could disrupt our society.
I'm curious, though, do you think it is possible to see more crackdowns of such nature in the future?
Looking at this particular case, it looks like it would take a combination of all these factors, a network of this size, the fact that it's a foreign entity spreading a message about Singapore, and the various factors rather than any single factor. So I think not every case is going to be dealt with in the same way.
So this is, as we understand, is the first use of the account restriction directions under the Foreign Interference Countermeasures Act. Do you think the response of the social media platforms to comply, it will set a precedent for future takedowns? Because at this moment, we know that TikTok has said that, okay, it will, comply with Singapore's directive. YouTube has said it will review the matter.
Well, if you look at other legislation that Singapore has in relation to taking down in messages as a whole, the social media companies have been pretty cooperative, especially when the reason for takedown is very consistent with their own community guidelines against inauthentic accounts and spreading of dangerous information.
But what happens, though, if they refuse to comply with the directive?
That will be interesting, because then you'll see whether the thing needs to escalate. But I'm pretty sure that they will, if it's consistent, especially with their own community guidelines, do the right thing and take it down.
What would the process look like in terms of the timeline? How long would they normally take if they were to comply with these directives?
Well, there's a certain timeline given in the directives themselves. But how much time it takes for engineering-wise to actually get the geo-blocking done, and it would really depend from social media to social media. And
Okay, so it really depends on the different social media platforms. How do you think this is effective in trying to stop foreign actors from creating new profiles to replace the ones that have already been blocked?
I'm going to suggest that the objective of a law action like this is not to block the future accounts, because that's really a technical question.
Okay.
But it's to send that signal that this kind of activity is not acceptable, it's not welcome, and that this round, it should block off the ones that are already causing harm to our society.
You know, Benjamin, as a user, how can we better exercise discernment when we consume or share information online? What should we look out for? What should we observe?
Well, from all the research that we've been doing at our center on critical thinking, I would say I have to remind myself when I see something, especially something that is going to trigger an emotional response, even though I might feel that inclined towards a similar thing, I have to stop and think, is there something behind this? And not just immediately share it on with people, but to really think, stop before I share.
All right, and to be more aware as well. Benjamin, that's a great tip. Thank you very much for coming in to speak with us. That was Benjamin Ang, head of the Center of Excellence for National Security and Digital Impact Research at the S. Rajaratnam School of International Studies. Thank you.